Hello everyone and welcome to our next series of Bobble Pod. And if you're listening to this, we have just gone past Christmas and New Year. So first of all, happy Christmas and New Year to everyone. So in this series, we're going to go through our digital trends for 2022, which is a good time to do it in January so we can give our insights and advice to everyone in terms of, what we think are the key digital elements in our each individual expertise and elements that we specialize in as, digital marketeers to help you. And first of all, we're going to start off with Claire. So,
hello.
Did you have a good New Year, Claire?
I did, thank you. It's really weird because you're asking me this in December, but we're going to pretend that it's the future.
We're going to do a Graham Norton.
We plan ahead, guys. That's how you do things around here. But yes, I'm sure it was lovely.
Yeah. Fantastic. So tell me, Claire, what are your key, if you were to think of 4 or 5 key digital trends that you would tell our listeners to focus on 2022, what would they be and why?
Okay, I'll give you just an overview of the topics that I'm going to cover, and then I'll kind of jump into them all a little bit more. So I want to talk today about audio marketing, about Reels and TikTok, about social commerce, Google automation, which could be a bit of a bugbear for you and I, Manny. And also, this is probably the only thing I'm going to say about it, but I feel like it wouldn't be a good trends episode if we weren't talking about metaverse. But all I'm going to say is I think it's there. It's something that we will start considering in 2022 is metaverse marketing. But I don't think we're really going to get into the throngs of it. So I'm hoping when we do a trends of 2023 that actually there's a lot more awareness and information about marketing in the metaverse, and we'll be able to go into a bit more detail then. But I think if we covered that now, it would be so niche for many marketers to be getting involved in that. Yeah, that's all I want to say. But we are aware we're not blissfully left out the metaverse, but we don't see it something that there's going to be loads of budget spent on this year, in 2022. So I'll get started with audio marketing. So obviously quite an obvious one for any of our listeners. What we're doing right now is audio marketing. So there is a video version of the podcast as well, available on YouTube as a podcast, but podcasts are audio marketing. And I think the rise in this trend is really about convenience. A lot of marketing comes down to convenience, and we know how huge video is. And actually, we've spent so much time in every episode of this podcast, we always end up talking about video. The kind of 18 months this has been running, we come back to video time and time again. Video's the future. You should be doing video, et cetera, et cetera. But when we start looking at marketing out of convenience and convenience to the consumer, not everyone has the time to always be watching video, but you might have the time to be listening to audio. So, for example, for me, I will listen to audio marketing in the car. So I might listen to a podcast or a promotional audio book, or even, we have to account for the fact that radio is audio marketing. I mean, I'm not going to go down that route. I'm going to look at the more modern forms of audio marketing, but I certainly think it's a space that more companies should be getting on board with. Like I say, when we're looking at the ways that people consume information, we consume so much more information now than we ever used to before. So we start looking at how do we get more content to people all the time through video, through written content. And so audio is another really key channel. One thing that I found really interesting was earlier this year, I went to a conference actually, and they were doing split rooms. You could go one room on one topic or one room on another topic. And there was about 200 people there. It was an event I was speaking at actually, but I wanted to go and check out some of the other content beforehand. Let's say there was 200 people there. There was a session on audio marketing that I went into, and there was 4 of us in there. So the whole other 196 people went in the other room. It was a bit more general. I think the other room was about SEO and social media. But I was shocked. I was like, people do not understand yet the power of audio marketing and what this is going to mean for marketeers. So I think there's still a long way to go in promoting it, but we're seeing more and more the opportunity that people are taking to create podcasts, and create other little audio snippets. Let's think as well about the fact that we've got Clubhouse, the rise of Clubhouse, the rise of Twitter Spaces. Facebook are going into that space. LinkedIn are going into that space. So this spells out audio is here to stay. The big social media giants are investing in it. I think it especially tells a lot when we see Facebook are going to be investing in that as well, because Facebook have obviously gone along with all the other trends. They've got stories, it's very much video led as well now. So the fact that Facebook are going to be introducing, already have started rolling out an audio feature says a lot about the future of marketing and creating content for consumers. So whilst I don't think Clubhouse got it spot on, and I think the reason they didn't get it spot on is because of the fact that it was had to be invited in. It only worked on iOS. So it was very exclusive. It felt very much aimed at a slightly older audience, let's say 30 plus, more affluent. You've definitely got to have an iPhone. You've got to be interested in kind of like business and the things that were being spoken about. Whereas I see the way that we adopt any trend is by the youngsters adopting it first and rolling it out. So I think that's where Clubhouse went wrong, because it wasn't targeting the Gen Zs. It was targeting, the likes of you and I. Whereas actually now we see Twitter and Facebook getting on board with that. We're going to see more adoption of younger people taking it up, and they're the people that we rely on to drive trends for the future for us. So yeah, I would definitely say audio marketing, has a place for every business marketing strategy for sure, just as much as video does. And the thing is, one thing to say is if you've just got on board, if you listen to all the podcasts and you go, well, I've just finally got my head around video. Video can be audio as well, as long as you've got an element of talking or anything like that. What was actually really interesting, again, from the same conference, is when I was then asking people about audio, people saying, well, actually, I use YouTube, but to listen. So people will go on YouTube to consume audio content, but they're not necessarily watching the video. So it could be that you put a YouTube video on in the car and you just listen to the audio. So it's not all, starting again, but thinking about how you can get the most leverage out of the content you're already creating.
Fantastic.
So yeah, that's my little audio marketing piece. The next one I'll talk about is social commerce. I'm going to start with a few stats. So total revenue generated by social commerce will exceed £696 billion by 2023. 70% of consumers search for products they want to buy on Facebook and Instagram. So if we start thinking about the big players in this space, Facebook, you can now have a Facebook shop. You can upload all your products to it. You can tag products in a post that people can shop from instantly. The same on Instagram, tagging products, one click and you're shopping that product online. We then look at how the other social media companies are getting on board with these trends as well. Pinterest is now very much a social commerce platform. I find it hard to actually get to the more mood board elements. I like to use Pinterest if I'm decorating my house to go and save photos, but now it's shop everywhere. I mean, they've got a tab at the top, shop, and you have to navigate off that. So Pinterest, huge space for retailers. Twitter, TikTok, they all now are introducing social commerce platforms. So for anyone, obviously this isn't for any company because you do have to have products, you have to be an e-commerce business anyway. But if you are selling online and you're limiting that to just your website, when you've got this opportunity to advertise your products all over social media and within one click, then you're missing out on something huge there. So for 2022, I really encourage any retailers to make sure that they're tapping into the potential of all these other social platforms and making sure that their products are listed on there. You can get, depending on what your website is built on, you can get some quite easy integrations to take your products from your website, put them onto your social shop. One thing that was interesting as well is This is the issue we always have. I want to say Shopify, other people want to say Spotify. Spotify have launched an integration with Shopify, so you can shop whilst on Spotify.
Wow.
So I find that really interesting. And first of all, you go, okay, on, base level, great for bands, for example, if that's where they stream their music, and then they can sell merch for people there. But I also like to see it as quite interesting marketing opportunity, tying in what I was just talking about with audio marketing, is if you're a retailer, you could have nothing to do with music at all. You could create playlists, like mood playlists, put them on Spotify, and then from the playlist link related products. So say if you sell clothes, a lot of online retailers, like for example, I was on H&M the other day and they'll have like winter must-haves or like creams, and so they'll have all the different like trends. If you created a playlist on Spotify to go with that trend and then you linked all those products, massive marketing opportunity. So I would love to see some people getting on board with that in 2022, because I think that has huge potential. I don't think that's why Spotify and Shopify integrated, but I think the potential there could be huge.
Is that just on the free platform or anyone who signs up to the premium one?
I'm not too sure. Yeah, I'm not sure how it works, but I imagine you'll have to have a paid account to obviously do the integration, and as well, obviously, you're going to have a Shopify store to be able to integrate. But in terms of anyone being able to see the shop ads, whatever, anyone could see those. But yeah, it's something that I would love to be trying for some of our customers this year for sure. So yeah. Then moving on, I feel like this is a bit of an obvious one, but I'm just bringing it to the room. And it's about, in 2022, I feel like Reels is really going to take over TikTok. So TikTok set the landscape for this kind of instant video content, a lot less professionally produced, accessible to anyone. And the reason it worked so well, as I mentioned earlier, is it was adopted by the Gen Z. So that's why the TikTok hype has become so real, because of the audience it was targeted at. And, we look at last year, TikTok, not last year, actually, 2020, the biggest downloaded app was TikTok. But they probably didn't capitalize soon enough on their potential with more and more features rolling out. And what they've had is they've had Instagram come along and basically copy their exact business model with Reels. Reels is just TikTok in Instagram. We then look at the fact that there's a licensing issue with the music, and it seems like there's a bit of a war going on at the moment that Instagram is going to win. So TikTok is now preferring original audio because they are losing the war on licensing the music, which Instagram is going to win. I don't have a stat actually, and I should have checked, and maybe we can put it in the description box of the YouTube video on the users of Reels versus TikTok. But the advantage Reels has as well is it already has the Instagram audience. If you're on Instagram, you are essentially on Reels. You don't need a new platform to go sign up to. A lot of the content creators who started out 10 years ago, so I'm in their kind of 30s now, people who really got on board with the Instagram hype early, the bloggers, all of that type of stuff, they didn't really migrate over to TikTok. So they've stayed on Reels. So when we look at tying that in with influencer marketing and the content that influencers can create, they're not creating TikToks, they're creating Reels for the brands that they're working with. So I do think going forward, whilst I don't think TikTok is dead and it's definitely worth being on if it's right for your audience, I just think if you go into focus on one area, Reels is the place. And for us, for example, we get far more views on our Reels video with the exact same content than we do on TikTok. So our reach is higher. So for us, that then makes good business sense to be invested in that platform. So if you're not sure, create on both, share on both, and see where your engagement is, see where your audience are, and that can then help shape your decision of where to invest.
I guess the benefit is the content you create for one, you can share on the other.
Yeah, you do have to. I mean, it'd be easier to create for Reels and then share onto TikTok because Reels doesn't watermark it. Whereas there's been an issue because obviously you get the TikTok watermark on your video, and even if you download it, it has that on. If you then share that onto Instagram, Instagram don't like it, so your reach will decline. So you have to use apps to take off the TikTok watermark. So we would just always recommend, don't build it in either. Record and create the content out of app and then go put it into Instagram and put it into TikTok. And then the final trend I want to talk about, and maybe this will lead in nicely to your next episode as well, Manu, because as digital agency owners, we're both affected by Google massively. And, I'm not going to go too much into our thoughts on Google. But one thing I'm seeing in regards to a trend is actually there's a lot more automation coming from both an SEO and PPC perspective. So for marketeers, obviously it's very helpful to be the experts in the know if you're running PPC, if you're doing SEO, and this could be in-house or externally using an agency. You know what works. You've got those tried and tested techniques that you've seen work before, and that's what you do. Whereas we started seeing this earlier on in Google, that now Google AdWords, it's all about recommendations. And actually, listeners might not know this, but from an agency perspective, because we're a premier partner of Google, for us to keep our partner status, one of the things we have to do is accept a certain amount of Google's recommendations. Now, Google's recommendations don't act in the interest of the client. They act in the interest of Google. So it becomes a very, very difficult and interesting conversation when we're looking at the fact that these recommendations, we need it for our status, but then are they always right by the client? And, the recommendations will always include increasing budget. But, as you and I know, Manny, sometimes that's just not an option. Small businesses, they don't have a lot of money. They're reinvesting everything they can into their ads to drive conversions, but they don't need a constant hammering of put more budget in, put more budget in, put more budget in. So we're seeing that automation already. And I think that will continue more. The recommendations currently you have to approve. My concern is that it might get to a point where it's actually all AI robot driven and there's very little that you can do to kind of change it yourself, apply your own knowledge and expertise. So this trend for me is more of a warning sign around the future of where Google's going and what that could mean for marketeers. We then look at that in 2021, we've started seeing this automation creeping in on the organic side as well. So, for example, anyone who does SEO, you'll know that kind of a really easy win is to update your meta titles and descriptions. Make sure they include your keywords and they're kind of written and they're there on all your target landing pages. So that used to be kind of SEO 101, get your meta titles and descriptions updated. But Google have now taken over that and gone, well, I can see that you've put a meta title and description in, but actually I'm going to create one for you if I think I can create a better one. So again, all AI driven. There's been huge fallouts because people on top position are actually finding they're getting less clicks because even though they've got the top position from their previous SEO efforts, actually what's happened is Google then changed the title tag, made it not relevant to the audience and people then not clicking it. There was a massive issue with the HMRC website. I think it was something like, it was their main landing page, which should have said a specific thing generally about HMRC. But the title tag was something so specific about tax that it pulled through that no one was clicking on it anymore. So there's been a massive issue with that. And so again, as a warning sign that Google are taking over and it's not all good. So as marketers, we just need to be aware of this. We need to kind of fight the good fight where we can and keep doing what we can, but just keeping on top of what's going on here, because it could affect future rankings, ad performance, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, that's something to take away, but I don't want to end on a negative. Yeah. So just to kind of quickly recap, yes, whilst we may beginning to have less control over Google and therefore our SEO and PPC, because obviously 80% of traffic goes through Google, there's some amazing opportunities for marketers out there. getting on board with the audio marketing hype, getting on board with Reels. You know, by 2022, online videos are expected to make up more than 82% of all internet traffic. So, you know, really do drive forward with video. We encourage that massively. And yeah, you know, the social commerce side, and maybe one of our listeners might go try out my little tip that I recommended about creating some Spotify playlists and linking their products through. So I'd love to know if anyone does that in 2022 and what the results are.
That's been absolutely fantastic. I feel like I've learned so much in the last 20 minutes. So yeah, I think there's some great, fantastic tips and trends for 2022. Let us know your thoughts. And if anyone does try that Spotify tip, I think that's a great one. I'll be passing that on to a couple of people and clients, definitely.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Don't forget to like, subscribe and follow us across all our platforms. And we look forward to catching up with you on our next episode. So thank you, Claire.
Thanks, Manny. See you next time.